Have you ever sat at the supper table with a broken heart and a smile on your face? Have you prepared a perfect night, not knowing that it would be the scene of the greatest disappointment of his life? I did. And in this story, which is not only mine, but of thousands of women who loved too much and annulled themselves too much, you will understand how, sometimes, the deepest pain becomes the starting point of our liberation. Because on that Christmas night, with the house decorated, the tree lit, the dishes served, he arrived. Not with flowers, not with gifts, but with the woman he hid from me for 20 years, and with the children he had with her. And the worst, he asked me to act naturally, to pretend that it was normal, to smile, to accept. This is not just a story of betrayal. It's a story of rebirth. When you realize that you held on to a rotten structure for years, believing it was home, and the moment everything falls, you finally find who you are. If you've ever doubted your worth, if you've ever trusted someone who used you, if you've ever been betrayed by someone who swore to love you, this video will touch you deeply. And maybe, like me, you'll discover that the end of the fairy tale is just the beginning of the real woman you were born to be. It was as if the whole house was breathing the spirit of Christmas. The cold outside painted the windows with that faint veil of mist, and inside, the twinkling lights were reflected in every corner, like small stars trying to warm the soul. The table was set with special crockery, kept all year round just for that night. There was the smell of cinnamon in the air, the sound of distant bells, and that old song my mom put on vinyl, now digital, but with the same nostalgia as decades ago. I've always loved Christmas. I was always the one who took care of every detail, from the candles to the door wreath, from the socks on the fireplace to the perfect playlist in the background. It gave me pleasure, you know? The feeling of bringing everyone together, seeing the children running, the laughter, the repeated stories that no one tired of telling. It was my way of holding the family together, even if it was for one night a year. On that morning of December 24th, the first thing I did was light the pine tree. It was tradition. Still in my pajamas, with a mug of coffee in my hand, I stood there in silence just watching the tree shine. My eyes darted over the old photos hanging like ornaments. Our first Christmases together, the children's cards as young people, the letter he wrote in their first year of marriage. And there, in that moment that should be sweet, something knotted my chest. A strange silence. Not the silence of peace, but a kind of emptiness that cannot be explained. My husband hadn't slept next to me for weeks. He said he was stressed, that he snored too much, that he had better lie down on the couch. But it was December, and in December, he always went back to being that sweet man I knew. Only this time, he didn't return. I began to notice the details. Small, but uncomfortable. His cell phone was always turned down, passwords changed, messages archived. He would leave the house with silly excuses, buy batteries, fetch wine, fetch last-minute gifts, and take longer than necessary. When I came back, I came with that smell of perfume that wasn't mine. A strange floral, too sweet. And yet, I refused to think the worst. It was Christmas, and Christmas does not combine with mistrust. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. The house was beautiful. The fireplace lit, the candles lit, each napkin folded with red and gold ribbon. I made sure to repeat everyone's favorite recipes. Aunt Susan's apple pie, my dad's nutmeg puree, the 2-day marinated turkey he always said only I knew how to make. In the midst of the rush, the expectation was the same as every year. Or almost. Because deep down, I knew something wasn't fitting. Something about him was different. An absent look, a coldness that he tried to hide with rehearsed smiles. I pretended I couldn't see, but the heart, the heart feels before the eyes see. The children came early to help with the sweets. The room filled with life for a few hours, and that made me forget. The noise, the laughter, the innocent requests for more icing on the cookies. For a few moments, I allowed myself to believe that everything was fine. But it was enough for him to pass me, silently, with his cell phone glued to his hand, to remind me of the wound that was beginning to open. Still, I held on tight. Because a mother, a wife, a woman who loves, she holds it. She pretends, disguises, smiles even when everything inside her asks for help. And there were also the small forgetfulness of him. Simple things, but they only confirmed to me what I was trying to deny. He forgot the tradition of toasting before supper. You got the name of the dessert recipe wrong. He didn't remember where we kept the star of the tree, which we always put together at the end. That hurt me, because it's in the little things that we notice when someone is no longer there. The body may even be present, but not the soul. As the day turned to night, the anxiety in my chest grew, a kind of restlessness that I could not explain. It was as if I was preparing the perfect scene for the worst movie of my life. But I moved on. I put on my best Christmas sweater, straightened my hair, put on red lipstick, and put on my heels. I wanted to feel beautiful. I wanted him to look at me and remember how good I was to him. Perhaps, deep down, I still believed that this Christmas would be like any other. Magical, full of love and reconciliation. But fate has a cruel way of giving us exactly what we need, even when it's the opposite of what we want. And that night, everything would change. Not because of a fight, a wrong gift, or a roast burning, but because of a truth that would come like an avalanche. Silent at first, but devastating when it arrived. And the most ironic, it's just that I still thought everything was under control. Until he heard the door open. That's when I realized what was once just a discomfort became a warning that no longer let me sleep. In the days leading up to that Christmas, time indoors began to distort. The hours took longer to pass when he was present, and at the same time, they seemed to run whenever he was away. And he was almost always far away. First there were the innocent excuses, the kind that no one would question. I need to solve something at work. I was late at the market. I'm going to visit my sister. She's going through a difficult time. But the more he invented, the more I heard my intuition screaming deep in my chest. There was something beyond the surface. And when a woman feels it, baby, she knows. It doesn't need proof. She feels it in the silence, in the look, in the change of breathing of those she loves. I started to observe more. Not out of jealousy, but for survival. Every call from him started to happen in the car or in the backyard. His cell phone screen, once so exposed, was now a fortress. Silent notifications, deleted history, contact names I've never heard of. There was a day, for example, when he went out to get wine. It took almost 2 hours. He came back with a cheap wine that wasn't even what we used to drink. And he came with the smell of cigarettes on his clothes. Detail: he never smoked. When I questioned, I said that a friend lit it up near him. He didn't even blink. She stared at me as if I was the crazy one in the story. There was also the story of the last-minute conference. A meeting on Sunday night. He left in a hurry, wearing the same shirt as always, saying that it would be quick. I already knew it wouldn't be. I stood there at the window, looking at the streetlights, hoping I was wrong. When he returned, he didn't even try to justify the delay. He just threw the keys on the table, passed me with a kiss on the forehead, and went straight to the shower. Without a look, without a word. As if we were fulfilling roles in a theater that had already lost its meaning. And the worst, I accepted, because I still didn't have the courage to face the truth. The people around us also started to notice. My sister pulled me aside at Sunday lunch and asked, "Is everything okay between you?" I replied yes, that it was just end-of-year stress. But my tone of voice delivered more than I wanted. A neighbor commented, in an overly casual tone, "I saw him leaving the other day very early with the car clean. Are you doing Uber now?" I laughed. I didn't talk. But inside, the flea behind the ear has become a siren. I began to doubt even what I myself knew. I asked myself, have I always been naive? Could it be that this parallel life had been there for years and I only saw it now because he wanted to be seen? There was a special moment that marked me. It was night. I woke up thirsty and went to the kitchen. As I passed through the room, I saw a flashing blue light. It was his cell phone, forgotten on the couch. On impulse, I took it. I just wanted to kill the doubt, nothing more. But when I unlocked it, I realized that he had changed the password. The same password as always, which he used for everything. Now it didn't work anymore. That hurt more than any message could. Because betraying trust is this. It is changing the password of the cell phone when, in fact, what needed to be changed was respect. Even so, I kept trying to justify it. He's stressed about work. He's having a midlife crisis. He's going through something and doesn't want to get involved. But deep down I knew I was trying to keep a castle that had already collapsed standing. Each lie of his was a loose stone in the structure. Each silence, a strong wind threatening to wash away everything. And there I was, with my hands bleeding from trying so hard to hold on. On one of the last nights before supper, we were lying down. He on the couch, me in the bedroom, and a notification vibrated on his phone. I couldn't see the content, but I saw the name, a feminine one, which I had never heard. When I asked him who it was, he smiled crookedly, took a deep breath, and said, "Oh, it must be a mistake." But the next vibration was almost immediate. Same name, same number, and he hung up the phone as if he were trying to hide his own heart. At that moment, I understood that the problem was not a message. It was everything that came before and after it. It was the fleeting look, the absent touch, the hug that turned into a greeting. And then I started to lose sleep. Each night, he rolled over in bed, creating theories, remembering past conversations, looking for clues in details that once seemed banal. And the more I thought, the more I felt alone. Alone inside a wedding, inside a house full of lights, inside a Christmas that promised to be magical, but that he was born wounded. And it was in this scenario that we arrived the day before. With the tree glowing, the presents wrapped, the smell of dinner spreading. And with me, looking at the clock and wondering, will he come up again with another excuse? Will I finally find out what he's hiding today? He left home saying he needed to get something urgent, and I felt, deep in my soul, that when I returned, nothing would be the same as before. The morning of the 24th arrived as usual, with that smell of sweet bread in the oven, the fireplace crackling, and the hope that, despite everything, Christmas could still be saved. The kitchen was filled with comforting aromas: cloves, cinnamon, nutmeg, and the indefectible turkey roasting for hours. The background music was the same that had been played since the boys were little. Those Christmas tracks that sang about miracles, snow, and reunions. But that year, even the songs seemed out of tune. It was as if the soundtrack of my life was trying to cover up a drama that no longer fit in silence. I wore my most beautiful clothes that day, like someone who arms himself for war without knowing if he will come back. A burgundy wool dress with long sleeves, medium heels, hair tied in an elegant bun. I put on red lipstick, as I did every Christmas before, but this year it looked more like armor than an ornament. I looked at myself in the mirror and noticed a sad strength in my eyes. That strength that only appears when we feel that we are about to fall. But it needs to remain standing. Because there is supper, there are children, there are visitors. There's Christmas. He woke up late, as if he didn't want to participate. He said that he had had insomnia, that he needed to leave later to solve a business. The tone of his voice was tense, swallowed. There was no kindness, no interest. Just that posture of someone who is there only out of obligation. When he passed me, I felt like I was in a cold sweat. He avoided staring at me, said he would be back soon and that he needed to get something important before the night. I asked what. He only replied, "Then you will understand." And he left, leaving the door ajar, his coat open, and my heart wide open. I continued setting the table, each plate placed as if I were trying to glue the pieces of a cracked story together. The white tablecloth embroidered by my grandmother, the silver cutlery inherited from my mother, the tall crystal glasses that we used only at Christmas. The children were excited, going up and down the stairs, laughing, singing, and I was there, smiling on the outside, while on the inside everything fell apart. Every second a part of me pleaded, "May he come back on his own, that I'm wrong. May all this be a figment of my imagination." But the tension was in the details, in the gift he bought and that he hid with so much zeal, in the different smell he used when leaving, in the way the cell phone vibrated and he left the room, in the coldness of the touch, in the haste of the gestures, in the avert of the gaze. I mentally relived the last few weeks as if trying to put together a puzzle that already had the pieces torn. And the more I mounted, the more I saw the image form. He was not a tired man. He was a divided man. And I just didn't know with whom yet. That afternoon, I almost gave up supper. I wanted to throw everything away, to turn off the lights, to pretend that Christmas had been canceled. But I couldn't. Because after all, I was still the woman who believed in miracles. The wife who was waiting for a turnaround. The mother who wanted to keep the tradition alive, even if by a thread. Then I took a deep breath, swallowed my tears and continued. I cut the fruits, drizzled the roast, arranged the napkins with golden ribbons. And every movement was a silent prayer for protection. The clock struck 5 p.m. Then 6 p.m. supper would begin at 8 p.m. He hadn't come back yet. My parents arrived. My sister brought the desserts. The nephews were already running between the living room and the garden. I smiled, hugged, thanked the gifts, took pictures. But inside me, everything screamed. Every minute, my heart prepared for the worst. And even so, a part insisted on having faith. Because faith, sometimes, is all that is left when reality insists on taking away our peace. At 7:28 p.m., he sent a short message. "I'm coming." Nothing more. No emoji. No explanation. Is that it? I'm coming. As if he were returning from a pharmacy, and not about to destroy a decades-old story. I held the phone tightly, as if it could protect me from what was to come. I felt my hands tremble. His heart raced. And for a moment, I wanted to run away. Flee. Disappear. To hide from the pain that was minutes away from knocking on my door. So I got up, went to the mirror once more. I adjusted the bun, cleaned my eyes, took a deep breath. I looked at myself and whispered, "You're going to take it." Because at that moment, I already knew. Something inside me I already knew. There were no more doubts, just waiting. That was the instant before the storm. And every second was thunder announcing that everything I believed in was about to collapse. He came in, and behind him the whole truth. A woman, 2 children, and a silence that screamed louder than any scream. It was shortly after 8 in the evening. The house, warmed by the warmth of the fireplace and illuminated by flashing lights that snaked through the furniture, seemed ready to welcome a night of peace and togetherness. The children were already agitated, running around the tree, trying to guess what was in the packages. The smell of supper filled the air with promises of warmth. My parents, sitting in the living room, were talking about the old Christmases, when everyone was still alive and life seemed simpler. My sister arranged the glasses on the table, attentive to every detail. And me, I pretended. She walked around the house like an actress on an ornate stage, smiling with eyes that insisted on watering. Inside, everything about me was a silent scream. He knew that night would not end as it began. And yet, I wasn't prepared. The sound of the door opening was soft. So soft that for a second I thought it was just the wind. But it wasn't. When I looked down the hallway, time seemed to slow down. Every second became an eternity. He appeared with a pale face, red eyes, a tense body as if he were carrying the weight of 1,000 decisions. But he was not alone. Behind him, a woman, young, beautiful, well-dressed, with scared eyes and trembling hands. And with it, 2 children. A boy of about 10 years old, a girl of 7, both holding small packages in their hands, as if they hoped to participate in any Christmas. As if that were normal. As if they belonged there. And at that moment, the world turned. The room, which until then had overflowed with sounds, plunged into a dense, almost sacred silence. No one moved. No one breathed. All eyes turned to the door, and to that scene that seemed to be taken from a movie that no one wanted to watch. He tried to say something. His mouth opened, but not a word came out. The woman next to him kept her head down, avoiding facing any of us. The children looked around, curious, not understanding the gravity of the moment. And me, I froze. My body froze. My hands, which were still holding a plate of French toast, began to tremble. But the smile appeared. Automatic. A conditioned reflex of years of training to hide pain. I smiled reflexively. I smiled out of desperation. I smiled because it was that or collapse. Because when the pain is too great, the body chooses the only possible defense: denial. And there, in that surreal moment, I denied it. I pretended I wasn't seeing what I saw. I pretended that this woman was not who I suspected. That those children did not have the blood of the man I swore to love all my life. I pretended because the truth was too big to fit in my heart, and because my soul was still trying to cling to the hope that all that had an explanation, a logic, an excuse that could fix the unbreakable. My parents got up slowly. My mother put her hand to her chest, in an almost instinctive gesture. My sister frowned, not knowing whether to approach or retreat. The children ran to the little ones present under the tree, as if they had been told to do so. The woman finally lifted her face. And that's where our eyes met. There was no rivalry. There was no anger. There was shame, blame, and a mute apology, as if she too had been caught in the middle of a gale that she could no longer control. That's it. That was what hurt the most. He then finally spoke, with a low, hoarse voice, interspersed with short breaths. He only said, This is my another family." 3 words, 3 bullets fired directly into my chest. Other, family, as if it were possible to have another one. As if what we have lived through all these years was just a part. As if my love, my surrender, my body, my house, my life, were divided into shifts. One half here, another one there. As if I had been just a chapter, and not the whole story. And at that moment, everything fell apart. Shame took over him. With every word, he tried to justify the unjustifiable. He spoke of mistakes, of fear, of bad choices made in the past. He said he never knew how to tell it, that he didn't want to lose any of the parts. That he loved me, but that he also loved those children. Who lived divided, who suffered, who tried to get out. But he couldn't. And with each sentence, he sank deeper. Because nothing he said could erase what was there, in front of everyone, living proof of the lie he sustained for more than a decade. The truth materialized in flesh, bone, eyes, voices, and names. And yet, I kept smiling. On the outside, at least. Inside, I screamed. I wondered how, when, why. I reviewed all the birthdays, all the Christmases, all the trips, all the moments when he said he was in a meeting, in transit, busy. Now it all made sense. The odd schedules, the absent weekends, the mood swings. Every detail previously ignored now fit perfectly. And that destroyed me. Not just for the betrayal, but for having deceived me for so long. He asked to talk. He said he needed me to listen. That he had done that because he was weak, human, flawed. That the woman knew of my existence, but the children did not. That I was tired of hiding. That I didn't want to live like this anymore. And that he thought Christmas would be the right time to unite everything. Join. As if it were possible to unite what was broken from within. As if it were enough to put the two families in the same room and wait for love to solve it. As if the truth spoken late still had the power to heal. I stood there, motionless, listening to everything. And the only thing I could do was take a deep breath, once, twice, 3 times, and say, "Come in. Supper is served." Because I knew that if I didn't say that, if I didn't maintain the slightest bit of control, I would explode. And not there. Not in front of my children. Not on Christmas Eve. Not while the lights were still flickering. So, I made room. They came in. Saturday. And Christmas has begun. But not as a party. Like a silent tragedy. Like a funeral disguised as a celebration. At that table, each bite was like a thorn, and each forced smile, a silent cry for help. The table was set as in Christmas carols. Cutlery lined up, napkins folded with red ribbons, transparent bowls that reflected the flashing lights of the tree. But that night, what shimmered wasn't magic, it was discomfort. The kind of discomfort that doesn't need to be named, because everyone feels it at the same time, even without looking at each other. When everyone was seated, the sound of chairs being dragged on the floor seemed louder than any background music. And for a few seconds, no one dared to say a word. It was as if the world had stopped turning for a moment, just to observe this absurd scene. I sat at the headboard, as always, and to my left, the man who, until hours ago, was just my husband. To my right, my sister with moist eyes, as if sharing my pain even without understanding everything. Opposite, the 2 children I fathered. And a little further along, the other 2 children. The ones that, until then, I didn't even know existed. They looked around curiously, laughed among themselves shyly, completely oblivious to the emotional implosion that filled every corner of that room. The woman, the one who now shared with me a 20-year history, was sitting with her hands on her lap, without the courage to look up from the towel. I served each one's plate with calculated gestures, as if the act of continuing the Christmas protocol could keep my sanity intact. My husband thanked me in whispers. She just nodded. The children smiled, asking for more rice, more puree, as if they were at any supper. It was surreal. Inside, I screamed. He screamed so loudly that he could barely hear the cutlery touching the plates. Each bite seemed to echo in my soul like an insult. And every time I forced a smile, I felt that a part of me died. But I kept smiling, because he knew that if he let the chaos show, that Christmas would become even more unforgettable, and not for a good reason. The conversations were artificial. There was talk of the weather, the turkey recipe, the city lights. Neutral subjects, without risks, chosen with the care of those who walk on shards of glass. My parents tried to keep their composure, but my mother's look gave away how much it hurt her. My father, silent, stared at the plate as if he wanted to disappear into it. The woman across the table tried to interact with the guests, but her every word sounded like a violation. She said that her son liked soccer, that her daughter was learning piano. And everything in me screamed, "These stories are not yours to tell here." With each attempt at interaction, my stomach turned. I felt nauseous. And it wasn't for the food. It was for the charade. It was for the superhuman effort to keep up appearances while my soul bled. I looked at my children and thought, they're seeing all this. They are learning what love is from this crooked example. They are recording this night as a family reference. I wondered if it would ever become a cruel joke in some therapy, or if it would forever mark them as the night they realized that adults lie. And they lie well. I tried to raise a toast, as I always did, but my voice failed. I raised my glass, smiled without showing my teeth, and whispered, "For the love that survives." Nobody understood. But at that moment, that sentence was all I could say without collapsing. Love that survives. Not romantic love, not fairy tale love, but self-love, love for my children, love for my sanity. The only love that still kept me there, sitting, dressed, sober. The only one who had not been corrupted by lies. And then the ritual of opening the gifts began. The children tore up papers, laughed, showed new toys. And their every laugh was a knife thrust in with sweetness. Because I looked at those two children who were not mine, but they were daughters of the man who had slept beside me for 20 years. And it was impossible not to feel envious, pain, anger, not theirs, but of the time that was stolen from me. Of the birthdays he spent away saying he worked, when in fact he was singing happy birthday in another house. Of the nights when he hugged me guiltily, saying, "I love you," when deep down he shared that love with another family. The woman tried to thank him for the reception. He spoke in a low, trembling voice, saying that he knew how difficult it was, that he wasn't there to provoke, but because he thought it was important, that she also suffered, that she never wanted to be the other one. But it all sounded like an excuse. And I, who had always been polite, just nodded. Because if I opened my mouth, I would say everything that didn't fit in that room. I would say that she did accept, that there is no way to divide a man without knowing that another woman bleeds for it. And that now, both were bleeding. Different, but equally. The supper ended. The plates were piled up. The children ran around the house. The adults were divided between the living room and the kitchen. And I locked myself in the bathroom for 5 minutes. Only 5. I sat on the cold floor, leaned my head against the door, and let the tears flow. No fuss, no hiccups, only tears. Because I still had to go back. I still had to smile. I still had to pose for a photo. Because that night, the perfect family photograph needed to be recorded. Even if it was the last. 20 Christmases. 20 anniversaries. 20 lives built on a lie. And I never suspected it. The night was already advancing when finally, after the dishes were washed, the wrappers were scattered and the children were sleeping in different corners of the house, he asked to talk. It was no longer possible to postpone. What had been hovering like a dense cloud for weeks, and which had finally turned into a storm that night, now needed a name, a form, a context. We sat in the living room. My parents had already left in silence. My sister helped collect the glasses, pretending not to hear. His wife, yes, she couldn't call her anything else, had taken the kids into the guest room. And me. I was there, in front of the man I have loved all my life, waiting to hear how he has managed to deceive me for 20 years, without batting an eyelid. He started with that old phrase, "It wasn't supposed to be like this." The typical attempt to soften the chaos. But it was already like that. And worse, it had been like this for 2 decades. He said he met her shortly before our wedding, who got involved during a difficult period, a phase of doubts, of family pressure, of fear of the future. And that, when she realized, she was already pregnant. He said he tried to break up, tried to disappear, but the feeling of guilt was greater. She looked for him, said that he needed to take over, that the child needed him. And he gave, returned. It stayed, and it stayed. 4 years, while he was also with me, married, father, husband, a family man, in duplicate. With each word, my mind tried to make sense of the timeline, the years that coincided with work trips, the parties he missed, the excuses of meetings on Saturday. Everything fell into place. And at the same time, everything disgusted me. I was trying to remember the first Christmas after we got married. I remembered that he arrived late that night. He said he had been stuck in traffic. I didn't even question it. I was so happy with my new dress, with the guests, with the decoration, which I ignored. I also remember a birthday of mine in which he appeared only at the end of the night, saying that the flight had been delayed. I cried with emotion that he came anyway. Now, I discovered that perhaps he had spent the day in another house, singing happy birthday to a son I never knew existed. He tried to justify it by saying that it was out of fear, that he didn't want to lose either of them, that I thought I could reconcile, that in time, things would work themselves out, who always believed that at some point, one of the two relationships would end naturally, and then everything would align. But it didn't end. On the contrary, the two have grown, strengthened, evolved in parallel as two universes that should never have intersected, but which finally collided that night. And I was there, listening, absorbing, trying not to go crazy. I was inundated with an avalanche of questions. He wanted to know the full names of the children, dates of birth, if he was at the birth. He took himself to the hospital. He was taught to ride a bicycle. If you had already traveled with them, they were called children, and each answer was a stab. Yes, yes, yes. He was there. He lived it all, and he did it without my ever knowing. He had 2 lives, and he kept me in one of them, as if it were possible to truly love in duplicity, as if it were possible to divide the heart and still call it whole. But what tore me apart the most were not the facts. It was the details, the way he talked about his children with her, with pride, with affection, with vivid memories. He said that the boy likes to draw, that the girl is afraid of the dark, that she, the woman, cares for them with firmness and gentleness, that he never took them to our house for fear of being discovered. But in recent years, he has felt suffocated, guilty, divided, who lived in a prison built by his own choices. And now he wanted to free himself. But for that, I needed to throw everything in my lap. And I wondered, how many times has he been with me with his head there? How many times did you make love to me and then go to sleep in her arms? How many promises did you make out of habit, out of convenience, out of fear of losing comfort? How many smiles did he rehearse to hide the panic of being discovered? And the scariest thing, how many times have I forgiven him for absences and distances, thinking it was just stress, just routine, just tiredness? I felt complicit in my own deception, because I closed my eyes, because I loved it so much, because I was loyal to someone who played with 2 hands and no scruples. He said he never stopped loving me, that love was real, that with me it was home, it was peace, it was structure, which with her was passion, impulse, chance, as if that justified anything, as if my home could be compared to an adventure turned addiction. And I didn't know what hurt more, the betrayal or the comparison, because I was everything. And even though it was all, I wasn't enough for him to be whole. I got up, walked to the tree, looked at the ornaments made by the children years ago. each one with a date, a drawing, a little piece of our history. And there, I realized that none of that had been a lie to me. I lived with truth. I loved with truth. I built a life based on what I believed. And even though he lied for 20 years, my part was whole. And that, in some way, brought me a hint of dignity in the midst of the abyss. But before I could process it all, I heard footsteps. Small steps. One of his sons approached the room, with a drawing in his hand. He handed it to me, smiling. It was him, the father, holding the two children. "I did it for you too," he said. And in that instant, my heart broke again. Because no child is to blame for being born of a mistake. No child should be involved in an adult war. And I, even torn apart, smiled back. Because there was still a supper. There was still Christmas. There was still a decision to be made. It was there, among the tears and the shards scattered on the ground of my dignity, that I began to recognize myself again. For the first time. Without it. After hearing everything, I could no longer sit in that room. His words still echoed in the corners of my mind, mingling with the sounds of Christmas that tried to continue outside. The children laughed in the hallway. My sister put panettone on a tray as if it would save the climate, and he stood up, came to me, tried to touch my hand. But I walked away. Not with anger, with limit. Because there was a line, and he had crossed them all. I got up slowly, went out through the kitchen, and went to the backyard. The biting cold of the night hit me hard, but I didn't come back. He needed silence. He needed the air. I needed the solitude of myself with myself, even if it was for a few minutes. I leaned against the stone wall of the back porch. The lights of the tree flickered from the inside, and I felt like someone who observes his own life from the outside. A spectator of everything he built being dismantled, piece by piece. And there, in that icy solitude, I cried. Not a pretty cry, from a movie, but a choked, crooked, silent cry. The kind of crying that comes from the soul, which doesn't have enough tears to handle the pain it carries. The lipstick was already smudged, the dress wrinkled, the hands trembling. For the first time in many years, I saw myself naked. Not of clothes, but of certainties, of illusions, of plans. And at that moment, a spark ignited inside me. I started to remember myself before him. The young dreamer who loved December, who decorated her room with lights, who wrote Christmas letters to herself. I remembered my strength, my independence, my courage. I remembered that before I was a wife, I was a woman, and that at some point, this woman was being silenced. With every excuse swallowed, every disappearance forgiven, every night I slept hugging him in the hope that he would go back to who he was in the beginning. I got lost. I dissolved into a marriage that consumed me without giving back. And now, out there with my heart in pieces, I saw a trail, a thread, a starting point. I stayed there for long minutes. The cold made me shiver, but I didn't care. It was as if the body was purging, releasing everything that had been trapped for years. Anger, hurt, fear, guilt. Everything came out with each panting breath. That's when I felt a presence behind me. It was my sister, silent, careful, with a blanket in her hands. She didn't say anything. He just hugged me. And that hug was the anchor that kept me from sinking for good. Because sometimes, all we need is to be seen. Not as a victim, nor as a warrior, but as a human. She whispered, "You're going to get out of this, and it will come out much bigger." We went back inside in silence. I needed to appear well. The children were still there. The guests, some of them, remained in the room. But when I walked in, I realized that something had changed. Not in the environment, in me. I was no longer the same woman who had heard those truths a few hours ago. Something inside me had broken, and at the same time reborn. A kind of clarity, of decision, of impulse for liberation. It was as if all that pain had dug inside me the space where I would finally fit entirely, without having to cringe. I sat down at the table again. He was still there, watching me with a mixture of guilt and despair. He tried to start a new conversation, to say that there was still time, that he could change, that all that was surmountable. But I interrupted him. For the first time in years, I spoke out without fear of hurting. He said it was not a question of forgiving or not. It was a matter of recognizing that something had died. That trust, once broken, is not rebuilt with last-minute promises. That I was not a piece of furniture in the house, waiting for him to decide where to put me. That I was somebody, and that she was tired of being forgotten in the name of his comfort. His wife listened, and for the first time, he spoke firmly. He said that he had promised to drop everything, that he had sworn to start from scratch, that she also felt cheated, that he had lived in the shadows, waiting for him to sort out his life, and that now there, in front of everyone, he exposed not only me, but so did her. It was a strange moment. Me, the betrayed wife. She, the lover believing that she was unique. And he, in the middle, trying to balance the two lives he built without the courage to sustain either. The atmosphere exploded. Voices were raised. Discussions began. My oldest son stood up and asked if it was all true. The minor, without understanding, cried. Their gazes crossed like blades. Every word was a shard. My sister called him a coward. My father, in an unprecedented gesture, said he was ashamed. His wife was crying. The children were scared. And I stood firm. For the first time, I didn't cry. I didn't tremble. I didn't shrink, because something in me had changed. And when a woman changes inside, the world around him begins to fall apart. It was then that I realized I didn't need him anymore. To feel whole, I no longer needed his validation, his touch, his presence, because deep down he never really was. He was an absence disguised as company. And now I was ready to choose myself. For the first time in 2 decades. The turning point began there, in the eye of the hurricane, in the midst of chaos. The moment I decided, I'm not going to bleed anymore to keep anyone whole. That night, he wanted to put the pieces together, without realizing that they no longer belonged to the same puzzle. Dawn was already approaching. The house, once filled with voices and lights, was now plunged into dense silence, interrupted only by the crackling of the fireplace and the sound of the clock marking every second as a countdown to the end. The children had already fallen asleep, scattered around the house like innocent pieces of an emotional war. The woman, the other, was locked in the guest room with her children. My sister collected glasses with red eyes. And he was in the living room, standing, looking at me as if begging for forgiveness, but he doesn't even know where to start. The tired face, the pleading eyes, the body bent by the weight of her choices. And me there, standing, whole, for the first time in a long time. He was the one who broke the silence. He said he knew he had made a mistake, that he understood if I wanted to move away, disappear, never see him again. But that, as absurd as it sounded, he still wanted to try to fix it. Not with empty promises, but with a real proposal. And that's when he said, I thought about bring families together. Do something different, new, honest this time. That sentence fell on me like a thunderbolt. Bringing families together. As if they were Lego pieces. As if everything he had done could be patched up with goodwill. As if I should accept to share what I built exclusively for 20 years, now with those who watched everything from afar, in silence. I asked him if he was serious, and he, without hesitation, said yes. He said it was the only way to keep the children close, that he didn't want to abandon anyone, that we were all important, that if we could be mature, we could create something new, even revolutionary. And I laughed, a dry, almost ironic laugh, not because I found it funny, but because at that moment, I realized how disconnected he was from reality. How much his ego was capable of transforming his own destruction into a project for the future. He didn't want to fix anything. He just wanted to continue benefiting from everything, even after the collapse. I was silent, but inside, a war was taking place. A part of me screamed that it was time to turn my back, abandon everything, break up for good. Another part. She remembered the old Christmases, the kisses on the stairs, the notes hidden in the closet, the children's birthdays, the nights when we slept cuddling dreaming about the future. It was not easy to tear 20 years from my chest as if they were sheets of diary. Even hurt, betrayed, devastated, I still felt it. There was still love. But love, I discovered, is not enough. Not when respect disappears. Not when confidence turns to dust. It was then that the other woman left the room. In her pajamas, with her hair down, her expression exhausted. He looked at me and bluntly said, "He promised me that he would leave you. He said he would spend Christmas with us. That I was just waiting for the right moment." That hit me like a punch. Not for her, but for him. Because while I was preparing supper, decorating the tree, and waiting for him with hope, he promised the same to another woman. The same words, the same plans. Duplicate, recycled. And I understood clearly that he never chose me. He only used me. How did you use it? As he uses everyone around him. I confronted them both. He said everything that was stuck. That he was a weak man who never had the courage to be truthful. Who settled into two worlds out of cowardice, not love. That loving two people at the same time isn't romantic. It's cruel. And that none of us deserve to continue in this cycle. She cried. He cried. But I didn't. Because in that instant, I had disconnected from everything. It was as if I had finally woken up. There were no more doubts, nor confusion, nor illusion. There was only one certainty. It was over. Not just marriage, but the version of me that accepted emotional crumbs as if they were feasts. He knelt down, cried, begged. He said he couldn't live without me, that I was the foundation, that the family, the real one, was with me. But I, for the first time, didn't feel guilty for saying no. Because self-love had finally found room to breathe. And no matter how many times he said, "Forgive me," I knew it wasn't about him. It was about me, about my dignity, about the woman I was, the woman I ceased to be, and the woman who was being reborn there, among the wreckage. Then I got up. I went to the bedroom, packed a small suitcase. I took only what was necessary. Documents, a change of clothes, my diary. My oldest son showed up at the door. He hugged me. I said, "Do what's best for you, Mom." And that sentence was everything. Because for years, I did what was best for everyone. I forgot about myself. I annulled myself. Now, it was time to remember, to honor, to start over, even if afraid, even if in tears. Because there was something sacred in that pain. It purified me. It freed me. Before leaving, I looked at him one last time. And he said, "You didn't lose your family today. You missed the chance to be a man worthy of her." I closed the door firmly. The sound of the wood pounding was almost poetic. It was the end point, but also the first paragraph of a new story. Mine. Alone. But entirely. I entered that supper like a ruined wife, and I left as a whole woman. Because sometimes, losing everything is the only way to find yourself. The street was silent. The snow was beginning to cover the roofs more intensely, as if the outside world was trying to erase the tracks of the night that had just happened. Each house still lit seemed to live a Christmas completely different from mine. Inside, maybe laughter, hugs, sincere apologies, real hope. But in my house, at that very moment, there was only the echo of a truth revealed too late, scattered like broken glass in every corner. And I, standing on the porch, watching the dawn take over the neighborhood, felt something new. It wasn't peace yet, but it was the beginning of it. My bags were packed. Few things. A backpack with documents, some clothes, my old diary, photos of the children still small. The essentials to not forget who I was, and not to lose myself as I discovered who I could still be. My oldest son came to me. He hugged me tightly. He said he understood, that he didn't blame me, that I admired myself. That was more powerful than any request for forgiveness I could receive. Because in his eyes there was something that for years did not exist in my husband's eyes: respect. Before leaving, I took one last look at the room. The ornaments still flashed, ironically beautiful against the backdrop of emotional warfare. The supper table still had leftover food, empty bowls, scattered gifts, traces of a night that should have been a celebration. And it turned out to be a rupture. His wife was in the kitchen, silent, not facing anyone. He, sitting on the couch, head down, with his elbows resting on his knees, holding his head as if he didn't know what else to think. The perfect image of a man who wanted to keep it all, and lost it all. I walked slowly to the door. But before crossing, I took 2 steps back. I looked at him. He looked up. I didn't cry anymore. I was too tired even for that. His voice, trembling, murmured, "Are you coming back?" And I answered calmly, firmly, truthfully, "I don't know. But for the first time in years, it will depend only on me." He wanted to insist, to argue, to promise, to rebuild. But I didn't let him. Because the time for listening was over. Now was the time for action. And my action was to leave. Outside, the cold was cutting. But it didn't hurt anymore. Because my insides burned with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Courage. Not the courage to stand up to others, but to face myself. To leave the comfortable place of known pain. To abandon the role of the wife who waits, the pillar who supports, the woman who always forgives. It was time to choose me. To put my needs above the expectations of others. To allow myself a new narrative, even if it started with loneliness. I walked along the snow-covered sidewalks with firm steps. Each step was a silent declaration. I will not go back to the place where I was little. I don't go back to the silence that screams. I don't go back to the love that suffocates. I don't go back to lies wrapped up in routine. I'm bigger than that. Greater than betrayal. Greater than the fear of starting over. Longer than the years that tore me away without me noticing. Because now I'm awake. I got to my sister's car. She was waiting for me in silence, as only those who love deeply can do. She asked no questions. He just drove. And on that empty road, with the radio playing a soft Christmas song, I closed my eyes. I didn't sleep, but I rested. Because even without knowing the destination, I knew I was going away from the pain. And that, for now, was enough. The cell phone vibrated. It was him. A long message, full of promise. I didn't read it. Deleted. Because everything he had to say to me, he had 20 years to say, and he chose to be silent. The city was left behind. The illuminated tree in the center, the cars passing in a hurry, the windows with snowmen and promotions. Everything looked like a scene from a movie that I was no longer part of. And that's okay, because now my film started somewhere else. Maybe in a rented house, maybe in a small apartment, but with peace, with truth, with the chance to rebuild myself brick by brick, without haste, without an audience, without pretense. And that was the greatest Christmas gift I could give myself. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if it will change. If you will insist, if you will try, maybe so, maybe not, but I won't wait any longer. Because I'm more than a broken promise. I am more than the eyes that cry hidden in the bathroom. I'm more than Christmases in which I prepared everything for someone who divided his life in two. Now it's my time to make mistakes, to learn, to try again. But being me completely, no halves. And it was in this silent dawn, in this modest car, with a tired soul and a beating heart like never before, that I understood. The end does not happen when everything falls apart. The end happens when we decide not to rebuild where there is no longer a foundation. And I decided. Christmas, at last, was over. But my life was just getting started. If you've come this far, it's because something inside you has recognized this history. Maybe not for the details, but for the feel. That feeling of having given everything to someone and still being left aside. Of having built a life on promises and discovering too late that none of them were whole. But there's something you may not have realized yet. You've survived. It's here. Feeling, aching, remembering, but alive. And that, in itself, is already a miracle. The truth is that no one teaches us how to rebuild after an emotional breakdown. No one tells you how to wake up the next day and pretend normalcy when everything in you begs for silence. No one prepares you to move forward without knowing if you're going to the right place. Just going, because staying would hurt even more. But even without knowing it, you will. One step, then another. And when you least expect it, you discover that that woman who was born from your pain, it is stronger, freer, and more complete than that which existed before. So, if at any point in your life you felt deceived, betrayed, despised, I invite you to turn this pain into strength. Don't settle for emotional crumbs. Don't accept to live halfway. You weren't made to be anyone's plan B. You are the beginning, middle, and end of a story that only you can write. And this story deserves to be lived with truth, with dignity, and above all, with self-love. Now tell me, have you chosen yourself today? If this story touched you, leave a comment below telling us what was the strongest part for you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear this today. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and keep following stories that transform. Because sometimes, all we need, it is to hear that you are not alone.